In our last episode, we performed a deep dive autopsy on TERUNSOUL's heavy hitter, the D016. Today, we're moving down the family tree to check out its little brother, the D018. This is a 3-channel setup sitting right around $100, which is actually only a few bucks more than the D016. The marketing on the box drops some massive promises, proudly claiming a 4K front, a 4K rear, plus a 1080p cabin camera. After our deep dive into the D016, I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing if the D018 can deliver some truly impressive performance landmarks here. To keep things completely objective, we're going to drag this unit through our standard tech protocol across our 4 core imaging dimensions: real optical resolution, HDR capabilities, 3D NR noise reduction, and frame rate stability. To keep things fair, our benchmark remains the VIOFO A229 Pro, the undisputed gold standard in dashcam performance. We're locking them both into our strict identical protocol: same time, same environment, same light source, and the exact same height and distance. Now let's see how the TERUNSOUL performs. Let's start with pure resolution. This is an ISO 12233 resolution chart, captured directly by the D018. Zooming into this eye chart, the horizontal converging lines remain clean and distinct until they hit right around the 12 mark. Past 12, instead of a clean blur, the limits of the sensor give way to heavy aliasing and color artifacts. A resolving power that tops out around 12 falls right into Tier 3, which defines it as mainstream native 2K. This tells us that, just like the D016 we tested previously, the D018 leans heavily on software interpolation to output its advertised 4K container files. The D018 actually shows a noticeable step up from its predecessor. The D016's actual resolving power struggled under identical chart conditions, barely hitting baseline levels. The D018, however, delivers a much more robust performance here, securing a rock-solid, genuine 2K layout. While it doesn't match a true native 4K output, it's clear that this new model brings a much cleaner optical foundation to the table. Now, let's look at how the VIOFO A229 Pro handles its resolution test chart. The lines on this unit remain incredibly clean and sharp, all the way up to the 18 mark, and even at 20, they barely show any blurring. This comfortably places it in Tier 1, representing true native 4K performance. Next up, let's talk about HDR. Let's pull up the D018's footage first. The algorithm works hard to keep the scene vivid and colorful, but the moment it meets that intense LED light bar, the pure WDR software approach hits a physical ceiling. The light completely overflows into a white glare, and this is where we see the exact same challenge we encountered with the D016. Because both models lack hardware-level HDR, they run into the identical bottleneck under severe exposure conditions. The raw glare spills over, completely washing out the final digit of the license plate underneath. It's a textbook limitation of software-based highlight control. Now, let's look at our reference model under the exact same torture test, the VIOFO A229 Pro. Instead of a giant blown-out cloud of white light, the edges of that strip are locked down under tight control. Even under that intense glare, you can still perfectly make out the full license plate ahead. This is why hardware HDR matters. It keeps a bright light source from erasing the one piece of data that could save you in court. Next, let's talk about the viewing angle. Pay close attention to the screen. I'm swapping the footage back and forth from the exact same position. If you watch the edges, you can see right away that the VIOFO A229 Pro gives you a noticeably wider, more spacious view. But here's the funny part. The spec sheets on their product pages say the exact opposite. VIOFO conservatively claims 140 degrees, while the TERUNSOUL D018 boldly slaps a massive 170 degrees. That 170 degrees marketing number? They're measuring the absolute maximum diagonal corner to corner, basically stretching the math as far as it can go to look good on paper. Meanwhile, VIOFO's 140 degrees is just honest, real-world horizontal width. No inflation here. In the dashcam world, bigger numbers don't always mean a better experience. Chasing marketing hype usually means sacrificing critical details. Trust me, 140 degrees is that perfect sweet spot where you get maximum coverage without turning your video into a circus mirror. Alright, what happens when the sun goes down completely? This is where a feature called 3D NR takes the wheel. Let's check out the D018 first. The moment the lights drop, you can immediately tell this camera's strategy: brightness at all costs. The image processor is fighting tooth and nail to push the exposure up. But look at the price we're paying. The entire image is completely crawling with a massive massive wave of colored static. All that moving chromatic noise can easily mask subtle details like letters or numbers when you actually need them. Now, let's slide over to the VIOFO A229 Pro. The 3D NR algorithm here is doing a textbook job. It calmly sweeps away the colored static, leaving the gray wall and the white charts looking smooth and uniform. It's a night and day contrast in how these two brands approach the dark, and that's where we see a pure engineering choice: brightness versus purity. Finally, we come to the most technical part of the test: frame rate. I've lined up both clips on the timeline for a side-by-side comparison. We're going to use the most direct and rigorous method possible, a frame-by-frame analysis. Okay, let's get started. We can see that out of every 5 frames, about 1 to 2 frames completely freeze. This proves that the D018 has a duplicate frame rate hitting an incredibly unstable 20% to 40%. Now, this dynamic might sound a bit familiar, but the situation here is actually worse than what we found before. On the D016 in our last test, it was a fixed 1 duplicate frame out of every 5, meaning a stable 20% duplicate rate. But on this D018, it's jumping between 1 and 2 frozen frames, putting the duplicate rate anywhere from 20% all the way up to 40%. It is highly unstable. This is just the single channel test. The moment you plug in the rear camera, that duplicate frame rate is going to climb even higher. For smooth, everyday driving, this might only appear as a subtle micro stutter, but if you need to pause at the exact millisecond of a high-speed collision, that repeated frame could mean missing a critical moment of telemetry data. All right, friends, that wraps up our video performance test for the D018. To give you a crystal clear look at the data, I've broken down all its metrics right here in this chart. Its footprint is actually strikingly similar to its older sibling, the D016, which we covered in our last episode. But we do have a micro upgrade here. The D018 pushes a native 2K resolution, stepping just a hair closer to true 4K territory. The D016, on the other hand, sits at a standard 2K, leaving a much wider gap to clear before hitting actual 4K. Beyond that resolution bump, though, the sibling rivalry ends. Both systems still struggle hard with HDR and 3D&R noise reduction. And when it comes to the timeline, while the D016 sits at a flat 20% duplicate frame rate, the D018 is even more unstable, bouncing anywhere from 20% all the way up to 40%. Now, let's keep it real. Pinning a $100 dashcam against an industry benchmark like VIOFO is a massive punch upward. TERUNSOUL absolutely succeeds in lowering the barrier to entry for the 4K hype train. But when you push these units to their physical limits, budget hardware constraints will always show their teeth. This isn't built for hardcore forensic evidence. It's tailored for budget-conscious drivers who just need a basic visual log. In our next episode, we are grabbing the screwdrivers and doing a complete hardware teardown on the TERUNSOUL D018. We're going to inspect its anatomy and see exactly what's identical and what's different between this and the D016. You definitely don't want to miss it. Drop your hardware theories in the comments section below and hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss our upcoming Teardown showdown. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!